I saw an article the other day reporting on some recent research on procrastination. The headline was Procrastination is an emotion regulation problem, not a time management problem. As an inveterate, unreformed procrastinator, I got so mad about this headline that I put off reading the article. Well, all right then. How do we support the development of goal-directed learners, a learner who moves through procrastination toward their goals? Just this one perspective on procrastination as an emotion regulation problem shows us just how complicated being goal-directed really is. Let's give our work some context today. Identify an opportunity to think about goal-directed learning. You could find a lesson you have just taught and want to redesign, or think of a concept or skill you're going to teach coming up. Or if you were examining a question like, how are classrooms designed to support goal-directed learning for instructional rounds, what behaviors would you look for among learners? How would that inform your future design? Pause here and discuss your chosen context with your colleagues. In many ways, being goal-directed is the culmination of many of the other characteristics of expert learners. In order to become, remain, and thrive as a goal-directed learner, you need to be purposeful, motivated, resourceful, knowledgeable, and strategic. If the resourceful learner is an explorer, the knowledgeable learner a navigator, and the strategic learner is the leader who is not afraid to make decisions, then the goal-directed learner combines all of these characteristics and more. She is the calm, trusted advisor, the chief of staff, standing beside the decision maker, always reminding the leader of the long-term goal. She knows herself and knows the team, what works well for herself and others. She knows the lay of the land and the resources available. She can see the many roads forward and can seek out and pull together the advice of her colleagues. Finally, she can honestly assess progress toward the goal. Her skills can be organized into three categories: self-management, knowledge management, and resource management. Self-management requires a suite of executive function and emotional regulation skills to maintain focus on and productive movement toward a goal. If the learner sets the goal, she has to fully embrace the goal, stay focused, and plan out clear action and intention steps. If the teacher sets the goal, the learner has to go through a process of accepting this goal as her own, understanding its relevance and value, its connection with other learning and her life. A key part of self-management is honest self-reflection on progress. Let's think about the context you chose. How would you see using something like this goal-setting habits self-assessment? What skills and knowledge would be needed to make this tool useful? You will find this tool and many others in the Tool and Resources document. There are two dimensions to knowledge management: self-knowledge and knowledge of content, both of which have to do with understanding and managing the boundary between what you know and what you don't know. Remember the resourceful learner who charges into her own ignorance without fear? The goal-directed learner modulates this behavior a little and asks, what are we going for here? And how do we get there? You might think of her as the resourceful learner's sensible friend, always up for an adventure, but is definitely the one who is going to bring them through it alive. In order to be able to set and pursue goals, the goal-directed learner understands the boundary between known and unknown, understands the contours and dimensions of that dark, murky border. She knows just the right question to ask herself to take her learning in a new direction and to enlighten some new dark corner of her knowledge space. She also understands herself well enough to know how to best approach the border to minimize threats and distractions, to maintain the best hope for self-management. Knowing what she knows and doesn't know very clearly allows her to see the relevance of new learning and ground it in what she already knows. Research has shown, no surprise, that strong prior knowledge is the best predictor of new learning. KWL charts and many of the tools we discussed last time, like concept maps, are very relevant here. Really, any method of tracking prior knowledge leading to new questions. Finally, resource management is about knowing what to do when you're stuck, knowing the answer to the questions, how do I need to be equipped and who do I need by my side? Self-knowledge and experience with learning inform the management of resources. In this way, the goal-directed learner plays a major role in co-designing her learning environment, choosing a book or video or experience to determine how she takes in new information. She chooses how best to express what she knows and how to challenge herself to express in new ways. Finally, she knows how best to array these resources to create the most engaging learning experience. These resources extend beyond the books and curriculum to seeing the teacher, peers, mentors, experts as ready resources and advisors to support new learning. At Olin College, they have formalized a network of peer experts called NINJAs, which stands for Need Information Now, Just Ask. They are peers who have an identified area of expertise and are willing and ready to share. How would this look in your classroom? Just from this description of self-management, knowledge management, and resource management, we can see how goals and goal-directed learning pervades the UDL guidelines. Providing options across our instructional design contributes to the development of the goal-directed learner. When we provide options for recruiting interest and self-regulation, the goal-directed learner can ask and answer, why am I doing this? When we provide options for self-regulation, she asks, how do I stay focused on my goal? For executive functions, how am I going to get to my goal and set a new one? For comprehension, how does this goal fit in with and advance what I've learned before? So that's nice, but what specifically can we as teachers do to support the development of goal-directed learners? This ambitious vision of a goal-directed learner is not realized overnight. We have to start by being clear about our learning goals and providing options to learners on achieving them. This moves learners a few steps closer to being goal-directed right away. First, we can think of it as modeling a good learning goal. One is the one that's the right size, right focus, and a logical progression from previous learning. Say, for example, write an engaging topic sentence. Second, by providing options, we exercise the abilities of the strategic learner, weighing and making decisions how best to proceed with a learning goal. Say, for example, voice record, write it down, or use speech-to-text software. Next, we can give opportunities for self-assessment and reflection on progress toward a goal. This both serves as a reality check on quality work and deep learning, and begins to build a sense of agency, control, and ownership of learning. You could have them put 3 of their own topic sentences side by side and ask, which is the most engaging? Why? Which one best introduces a topic and points the reader in a clear direction? We have brought the goal-directed learner up to the edge of the question, if I'm not there yet, what am I going to do about it? What's next? Now, they may be ready to start participating in goal setting. In the beginning, they may choose a writing goal from 3 that you provide. Say, focus, for example, on details, the concluding sentence, or connecting words. Based on their self-assessment, what do they think would be the next step in their writing? They embrace and focus in on the goal, realizing that they can be in charge of becoming a better writer. As you expand the menu of goals, providing the healthiest and most thoughtful options along the way, the learning goals slowly begin to belong to the learner and not to you, the teacher. Soon you find that, like the 7-year-old who runs nonstop, they have moved from cruising along a couch to supported walking, to first steps, to toddling across a room to get something, to walking with ease, to running. Take a minute after our video to think about what this progression might look like in the context of the lesson you chose to focus on, or what learner behaviors you would look for during instructional rounds to see this progression. Where are your learners now in the progress toward goal-directed learning? What is a possible next step for them? Becoming a goal-directed learner, like becoming a motivated learner, is not something that we as teachers control directly. We create the conditions, the knowledge, the skills, culture, and expectations that have the potential to lead to the development of goal-directed practice. The greatest challenge in this is sharing power with our learners by providing them an avenue for creating and pursuing their own goals. Thanks for joining me on this adventure exploring our vision of an expert learner. See you next time to wrap up our UDL Ideas in Practice strand.